All right, y'all. Okay, y'all can hear me. Okay. Welcome. Welcome back to my channel. I know this is a little bit I'm very, very like paranoid about my hair. So if you see me touching it a lot throughout this uh episode of Storytime Saturday, just just ignore it, okay? Saturdays are my Sabbath. So usually when I get an episode of Storytime Saturday until the sun goes down. If you want to know more about my spiritual beliefs, and why I celebrate the Sabbath on Saturdays, feel free to drop a comment below. So that's why you're getting glasses. That's why you're getting crazy hair because it's Saturday. I'm resting and I'm just enjoying time with God, time with my family. Of course, from Friday sundown to Saturday sundown. Um, so I really do a lot of big chilling on Saturdays. But God gave me this vision for the idea for Storytime Saturdays. And I actually did miss Storytime Saturday last week. So I might just do it bi-weekly. I don't know. We'll see. But welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Jaleesa the Golden Child, and my mission is to guide you to be and see your most authentic self, uncover and release limiting beliefs, and unleash the golden child within. I wouldn't be the golden child if I didn't remind you that you're the golden child as well. A lot has happened in my life, so I do have a lot of stories to tell. Um, the next video might be about my birth experiences. I don't know if I'm going to do all three in one or if I'm just going to do one at a time because they were very different, but also very traumatic. And as I am in the process of becoming a doula, um, I just feel like that is going to be something that is important for me to share as I process and heal through my own experiences so that I can better support other women with their experience through childbirth and pregnancy. So, um, like, comment, share, subscribe, all the things YouTube wise. I am working on monetizing my YouTube channel. Um, so like, yes, I'm here to share the things that God puts on my heart, but I'm also here to make some coin. Okay, I am a single mom, as I mentioned in the last story time video. How I became a single mom, transitioning from being a stay-at-home wife or mom, being taken care of, to now pretty much taking care of three kids on my own. I will say that my ex-husband has been more financially present these past few months, which I'm very grateful for because I've been working at a deficit financially. Definitely been working at a deficit trying to provide and care for um myself and three young children that are now 5, 4, and 2 and eat like they're 15, um, 14 and 12. Just had the experience of them drinking a gallon of milk in 2 days. I was traumatized. So talk about traumatic. And I need to put my phone on do not disturb because people tend to people when I'm trying to do things. Let me make sure. Okay, we're still live. But let me send my mom a message because that's who is trying to get to me. I'm recording. I'm recording. Um, so you get to see firsthand Um, oh, daggone autocorrect. Okay, there we go. Um, don't remember what I was saying. I have no clue. But yeah, so transitioning from being provided for, taken care of financially to becoming a single mom on government assistance, trying to provide for myself and my kids, build a business, homeschool my children, continue to homeschool my children, not wanting to disrupt or interrupt their lives any more than it already had been without their father being around, being only 1 month postpartum when the original separation happened. Um, but if you want to know like the backstory of my ex-husband and I, how we came to be, him being my college sweetheart, XYZ, watch the first story time because that will give you the backstory behind that. And I'm going to share in this video my um my side of the story. Okay. I'm pretty sure that if him or his family or anyone close to him have their understanding or their version of the story, that's their version. I'm telling my side of the story from my perspective with my experiences. And this is not to bash him or talk bad about him. I'm just sharing my experience. What I experienced with going through divorce, being, like I said, 1 month postpartum. And the purpose of this is one, for you all to get to know me better and for people to know that they're not alone in their experiences and that they're not crazy to want to leave a situation that might not be quote unquote that bad. Um, so yeah, and this is the story that God brought to my attention to share. So I'm being obedient. So even if it's just one person that is impacted or positively impacted by this story, I will definitely put a trigger warning out there because as I mentioned, it was a traumatic experience. Um, but I did share a little bit about the initial separation, I believe, in the first story, but I'm gonna kind of go into more detail. I literally am just spirit led. I don't write scripts or like notes or anything like that. I am a manifesting generator in human design, so I literally my magic is in the moment. So most of my videos, my um events, they have more structure, but even in those events, I don't have like a script or to say, oh, this is what I'm going to share or how I'm going to respond. Like there's really none of that. I literally have been spirit led and intuitively guided with majority of the videos on my YouTube channel. So if it seems like I'm like rambling or all over the place, that's why. So thank you for listening. Thank you for your support as I navigate this new season of faith and just being led and guided in my purpose and my calling and the things that God has called me to do. So you might hear me say God, you might hear me say Yahuwah. God is what I've been calling him for 32 years. So this transition from God to Yahuwah has been slow, but it's new as well. So if you hear me say Yahuwah, then I'm talking about God, or Yah, I'm talking about God, um, who I believe to be God. Um, I was born and raised Baptist, Christian, holiness, that more so focused on religion, but I know it's kind of cliche, but I'm now focused on my spirituality and my relationship with God. I still read the Bible. I still, study scripture, but the whole Bible, not just the 66 books, the Apocrypha and the lost books of the Bible as well. I'm not sure if I'm going to do like Bible study or anything like that. As I'm talking about it, it just became a thought, but I am a part of a group that does do Bible study on the whole Bible. Um, but the reason why you're here, see, I told you. The reason why you're here is to learn about my traumatic divorce experience. And as I mentioned, at the time of the separation, I had already been preparing for a divorce. Prior to finding the right therapist for me, I was going back and forth with my decision to get a divorce because, again, my kids were young. They were 2, 1, and 1 month old at the time. Um, I was being provided for. I didn't work. I had my business, but I was focused on the kids. I literally had my kids back to back. My kids were 2, 1, and 1 month old. My first two were are 10 and a half months apart. And then my younger two are 19 and a half months apart. So I literally had been at the time breastfeeding and or pregnant for about 3 years straight. So postpartum, it was like I didn't really even get the chance to go through postpartum because I was so focused on mothering. And now going through my doula training, there were signs of postpartum challenges that I was having that I couldn't articulate as postpartum challenges because I was going through such a traumatic relationship and divorce process. So I had a therapist. I mentioned this in the first video. I remember now. But when I found the right therapist, that was when I began the process of what she taught me was conscious uncoupling. And that was what started my decision and preparation for leaving. I say leaving loosely because of the way that the situation happened. We bought a house um, with my parents. So, and then prior to us buying this house here, we were living in an apartment with my parents, my sister, and her husband. So I'm very much close to my family. Um, and we're very much the non-typical family that believe in communal living. So when we got married, before we got married, he moved in with me. Um, a plethora of reasons, but he moved in with me about 2 months before we got married. So we had never lived on our own as a married couple, which could have contributed to some of the challenges, but I feel like it alleviated some of my challenges in the marriage because I felt like he couldn't isolate me, like he couldn't keep me away from my family, he couldn't keep me like he couldn't keep me blind to what was going on because like there are people actually seeing what's going on. Like I was experiencing cognitive dissonance for sure. And if you don't know what cognitive dissonance is when you can experience something negative with someone, but your brain kind of tricks you into believing like, oh, it's not that bad, it's okay, or you focus on the positive aspects of your relationship with this person or the positive aspects of who you want this person to be or who this person has been, and you just focus on that. So for me, my judgment was very clouded, but because again, I had my family, I had my therapist to show me to help me clear the fog of what I wasn't seeing. And I literally just started this process. It started with the decision because, like I said before, finding the right therapist, I was going back and forth because the therapist that we had before made it seem like I was like overreacting. I was doing too much. Like I was being gaslit and manipulated. And it was just like, yeah, that's not where it's at. When I started telling other people or like reaching out to other people about my experience, they were like, yeah, that's not where it's at. So when I found the therapist that I have now, um, she really helped me to open my eyes that I was being more severely abused than I had even understood or thought or wanted to acknowledge. Because this is my husband. I had 3 kids with him. I love him. I'm in love with him. I've been in love with him, but now I know it was a trauma bond. And yes, I do still have love for him, but I know that because I was in such a broken and unhealed space, that it was a trauma bond more than anything. I did grow to love him. I did grow to be in love with him. My understanding of what being in love was. And I'm not sitting up here to try to make it seem like I was a perfect wife or the perfect girlfriend. I did have my issues. I did have my challenges. I had to have a smart mouth. And I don't avoid conflict. So if it's an issue, I'm gonna bring it to you. And if you're the type of person that can't handle conflict or you avoid conflict, then you're gonna bump heads constantly. And that's what it was with me and my ex-husband. And because I'm such a alpha, if you allow me to lead, then that's what I'm gonna do. And sometimes that might make a man who is an alpha or like not as dominant feel less than. But that's not my intention. I'm just trying to get stuff done. I'm just trying to make sure things are taken care of. If you're lackadaisical or slow to move or not leading the way that you're supposed to. So, like I said, I'm just telling my experience with the divorce, but I will say that I feel like I did everything that I could to try to make it work before um finally calling it quits and before finally deciding like this is it, like this there's no coming back from this. Um and I don't regret it. I definitely don't regret it. Um I know that he still would like for us to try to make it work or go back and get back together, but I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. Like I said, I still love him. I still care for him because he is the father of my children. I did have years of history with him, almost a 4-year friendship before anything. Um, so it's definitely, I care about him. I don't want to see anything bad happen to him, but I just know that we're not meant to be together. Um, but going back to the actual separation and then the divorce. So in had my youngest April 2nd of 2022. And a little over a month later, um, right after a forgiveness ceremony, which I talked about in the first episode, um, he was like lashing out at the kids. And I was just kind of trying to get the kids together, get myself together so that I can take them outside so he can like cool off and, deal with what he needed to deal with after the forgiveness session, not going the way that he wanted it to go. Um, So the separation, if you want to know more about the actual separation event, go back to the first video. But the separation started with the protection order. The protection order required a plethora of court cases because he had moved to a different county and there was like a disconnect between the county that I got the protection order in and the county that he had moved to. So it was like trying to get him served. There were issues with that. um Time and time again, like it was a whole lot of experiences where I felt like I was unsupported as the survivor. um but again, like with that whole experience, realizing that I was pretty much abused in every way possible by my now ex-husband. And of course, like I said, this is my perspective, this is my experience. If you talk to him, you have a conversation with him, he'll say something different. Um, but again, these are my experiences. This is my side of the story. Um, but my therapist really helped me to get a clear understanding of what the level of abuse I was experiencing and going to get the protection order kind of opened my eyes even more with having to write out the incidents that occurred, because the first incident that happened, which I talked about in the last video, it was like, oh, that's not enough. So to have to sit there and write out incident after incident after incident that happened to me, not only me, but my oldest child, um, it was heartbreaking. I felt so guilty. I felt so shameful because I had allowed these things to happen to myself, not only myself, but my child. And it was all because I didn't want my children to grow up in a broken home. And what I realized is that if it's two people or three people or however many people, if the people in that family, if the people in that household are broken, you are raising your children in a broken home. I was broken, he was broken. And although both of us had our religion, had our relationships with God, there was a lot more work that we needed to do to heal, a lot more trauma that we needed to deal with, and a lot more issues that we had in our relationship even prior to marriage that weren't dealt with. So it was a compound, a mixture of unhealed people and just not understanding the level of healing that was required, even prior to us getting married. So getting the protection order, going to court, back and forth to court. I probably went back and forth to court 10 times, probably more. Like just the time, like my brain, because I've been through so much trauma, my brain kind of blocks out time. It's like I can't really tell unless there's like a marker. Like I know I had my son April, I know it happened May. Like, but the time between May and when the protection order ended, I think June of 2023. Yeah, 2022. Yeah, June of 2023 was when the protection order ended. But that whole process, that whole experience was a very traumatic time. I got the protection order final, like the final protection order in June. July was when I found a lawyer, a program that would support my divorce process where I wouldn't have to pay for it. A domestic violence organization that supports women. If you want more information about that, I can share it. Just reach out to me. hello@jalisahardy.com. Um, but that organization, I don't have to pay for anything. I don't have to pay for mediation. I don't have to pay for the court fees. I don't have to pay for the filing, none of it. So thankfully, I was able to, this experience of going through domestic violence was what afforded me the opportunity to be able to go through this process and not have to pay anything. So there were pros and cons because had it not been a protection order, had it not been abuse, then I would have had to pay. But I probably wouldn't have been trying to get a divorce anyway. So that's neither here nor there. But I had to do a lot of research, make a lot of phone calls, and like go through a lot of different resources to be able to find them. Um, and it can be a challenging. It was challenging because, of course, I was very fresh postpartum, still, bleeding, and um, just trying to navigate getting out of an abusive marriage and still take care of my kids. Still breastfeeding my youngest at the time. They had um diagnosed, I guess, diagnosed him as failure to thrive because he wasn't gaining weight, but I wasn't eating. I wasn't really drinking much water. I was breastfeeding. I was producing milk because I've always produced a lot of milk, but it wasn't high enough in calories for him because I wasn't eating. So I had to really like shake myself out of the space that I was in because I literally felt like at some points, which now I know was part of my postpartum challenges. I really felt like because of everything that I was going through and everything that my ex-husband was putting me through, I felt like, and it's hard for me to say right now, that my kids would be better off without me being here. Like they wouldn't have to fight. We wouldn't have to fight over them or figure out where they were gonna go. They would just be with their dad, even though I knew it wasn't the safest option at the time. I was just like, if I'm out of the picture, it won't be a fight. I won't have to fight. I won't have to go back and forth to court. I won't have to figure out, how to make sure that my baby is fed because I gotta go to court. Like it was a lot. And mentally, emotionally, spiritually, I was broken. And I don't think I told anybody about the thoughts that I was having. I probably journaled about it, but I didn't tell anybody that I felt like my kids would be better off without me or with me being unalived. Um, so it was a definitely a very dark time. Um, but I'm on the other side of it, and I'm very grateful. The divorce process was another tumultuous time. I had to go back and forth to court for the protection order at the same time as going back and forth to court for the divorce. So there were a lot of traveling. There was one experience where I was on my way home from the court for the protection order, and my truck spent all the way across the highway during rush hour traffic. Thankfully, nobody hit me. Thankfully, there weren't any accidents behind me, but I was definitely like traumatized for a while after that with driving, especially in the rain. And even now, like driving in the rain is a challenge for me. It's not as much because I've done it a lot more since then, but yeah, it's still, and especially now with my truck being the way that it is, that's a whole nother story. Having the issues with my truck that I have, it's like I'm like very, very anxious about driving in the rain. So um going through the process of divorce, it was easier because I had support. I had a lawyer. I don't think he had a lawyer through the whole process, but he did. I felt like he did whatever he could to make it as hard as possible for me to get the divorce because he really didn't want the divorce to happen. So he was being as difficult as he could to kind of make me rethink getting out of the marriage. So that's why I said when I said leave, he had to leave the house. I didn't have to leave and move anywhere, thankfully. Like when I say it was a very challenging time, but my support, my community, my resilience, my willingness to be supported in community spaces online. Like I literally sought out communities and spaces that I could go to be supported during this time. My new therapist, like there were so many things that I was blessed with throughout this process that made it easier, but it was still a traumatizing time. It was still a really very, very hard time. I was so heartbroken because it's like I plan to spend my life with this man. I plan to have more kids. I had planned to, build a legacy with this man and to be in such a place where it was like I had to choose my heart, and I felt like I would be better off without him. And that was a hard realization to come to because that's not what I wanted at all. I didn't get married to get divorced. I didn't get married to raise my kids in separate houses. I didn't get married to have to figure out custody and child support and all those things. Dealing with child support, that's a whole nother thing. But um, y'all, these story times are gonna be long. It's just the way that I think, the way that I tell stories. I'm gonna try to keep them shorter, but if you want a shorter video from me, go to Freedom Fridays. I'm pretty decent with keeping those short. But went through the divorce process. We tried to do mediation. Um, Around New Year's, he lied to get a criminal charge pressed against me. But prior to the divorce, there were things that he said to me to make me not get the divorce. He threatened to kill himself. He threatened to get the kids taken from me. He accused me of cheating, which I wasn't doing. Um, and there was something else that I can't remember right now, but it was like a lot of scare tactics that he one of them in particular, the one as far as him threatening to get the kids taken from me, he really tried to, because he pressed a criminal charge against me to try to get me arrested and get the kids taken from me. Um, and again, I'm fresh postpartum. This was all new. Kids were young. I was still breastfeeding exclusively. Um, and that for me was like the final straw. It was like, even on those days where it got hard, even on those days where I felt like the system had failed me, and I thought like maybe I'm not making the right decision, that was the final straw for me. It was like, there's no coming back from this. For you to put me, not only me, but your children through something like that to try to get me arrested so that you can take the kids away from me, knowing that I have them 24/7. I'm still breastfeeding our youngest exclusively. It was like, you don't care about me. You really don't care about our kids. It was all about hurting me. It was all about me feeling the pain that he was experiencing. And I knew then that there was no going back. Even though before that, like I had made a decision, but it was like, even if I was like wavering in my mind, like after that, it was like there was no going back. Um, so that was like the final straw for me, where it was like, yeah, I'm gonna continue to fight through the system, fight through whatever challenges I might have to face to, get what I needed to get. I'm thankful, like I said, I was able to be resourceful enough to reach out and find organizations like HopeWorks to have a lawyer for the protection order case and get a lawyer for the divorce case. So I was blessed. I was definitely blessed to go through this process. I didn't have to pay for lawyers for either case, thankfully. But I've always been a very resourceful person, like willing to go out and find what I need. Um, for the free, okay, for the low. But going through the divorce process, we went through mediation, 8 hours of mediation, and like a few days, maybe 2 days before the final hearing for mediation, he had asked me to claim the kids on his taxes, which he hadn't been helping with. He wasn't paying the what was it called? Emergency family maintenance that was mandated with the protection order. Um, he walked off his job and ended up getting fired because he said he was just mentally not there. Um, but for me, from my perspective, it was that he didn't want to help me take care of these kids. Because he had said, if you divorce me, that was another thing. That was the other thing. If you divorce me, I'm not paying child support. I was like, okay. But I still, made the decision to get out. And I know it was the right decision for me. I know it was the right decision for my kids. Financially, it's still a challenge, but every other way, I know it was the right decision. And I know financially things are going to improve. They have been improving. It's just a matter of time before I get to the space and place where I don't have a bunch of debt and my income exceeds my expenses. Um, but like I said, with that whole process, we did mediation. And once I told him no, that he couldn't claim any of the kids, because I'm like, you haven't been helping me financially with them. Why would I allow you to claim the kids so you can get a tax refund so you can spend that money too and not help? So I ended up telling him no about claiming the kids. And after that, he said, well, then I'm not going to agree to anything that we agreed to in mediation. We had come to it was when I tell you it was sweet. I was like, you know what? You can have very little child support, like visitation whenever you want it, whatever the case may be, we can discuss it. But I just wanted full custody of the kids. That was all I was asking for. I wasn't asking for alimony. I wasn't asking for. Like it was a lot that I had was willing to forego just to get full custody of the kids. And even that whole thing, he gave me a hard time. So I ended up like, being very lenient and understanding of the system because my lawyer was like, most judges are not going to give you full custody, even in a domestic violence and CA situation. Um, so I compromised a whole lot against my better judgment, against my intuition. I just wanted it to be over. I just wanted peace. Um, and in that situation, he ended up, at the last minute saying, "Oh, I don't agree to anything. We did a mediation because you won't let me claim the kids on my taxes," which was not something that I had to do anyway because legally they were living with me. Um, Listening off my 2-year old. But he, I just feel like he made it so much more difficult than it had to be. So we ended up having to go to court. Um, he didn't submit any of the forms or paperwork that he was supposed to submit. Um, it was a whole hard nightmare situation, and it really didn't have to be. Because it wasn't like I hated him. I just wanted peace, and I just wanted the marriage to be over. I wanted our kids to be safe. I wanted the marriage to be finalized, and that was all I wanted. Um, so he ended up not because I've always been the one to like keep track of like the calendar of dates and finances, like all of those things, like managing the household. I was the one that did all of that for him. So he didn't know. He said he didn't know. I don't know if he did it on purpose or whatever case may be, but he said he didn't know where court was or what time it was because the day of court, he didn't even show up. Court was at 9 o'clock. He called me at 11, like, where is the court? And I'm like, court is over. It was at 9 o'clock this morning. They gave me everything, literally every single thing, and then some, because he didn't show up. So ended up getting everything I wanted and then some because the judge was so nice. He was so sweet. That was one of the things that I was afraid of because my lawyer kind of tried to prepare me. She's like, you're a Black woman in the system, and most of the judges are old white men that don't really care about you or your situation. So I was so concerned about that. And during the initial process, I did have that experience with one of the judges. So I was very much like aware of what could have happened and how things could have gone. But older white guy, retired judge, he was so sweet and so nice. Like it literally couldn't have gone any better. Um, so I did end up getting full custody of the kids, which is what I wanted. And it ended up working out in the end. Now we are definitely in a much better place, a much more cordial place. Um, I would like for him to see the kids more, especially now that they're older and can talk and tell me what's going on if he does decide to do things that are outside of what I feel is appropriate. Um, so I'm working through it. Definitely still healing, because I was in a relationship after him, which now hindsight, I know it wasn't the right relationship for me to be in. I probably do a story time on that too, because I was a whole that was a whole situation. I was dating a guy in a wheelchair. Yeah. Um, but yeah, that was my I didn't want to go into like too much detail because this is YouTube. Um, but that was the gist of my traumatic divorce experience. If you want to know more details, drop a comment below. My energy is low because it's been a long day. I've been working on my doula training and doing what I need to do with the kids. My mom this Saturdays are our Sabbath, so Saturdays she literally is in her room. She usually helps me with the kids during the week, but on the weekend she's like in her room. She's like, "Y'all leave me alone. I need a break." So it's just been me and the kids today. I didn't get the chance to take a nap because I was working on my schoolwork and trying to get my trunk fixed. Um, but yeah, do you have any other questions about my experience or about the resources that I was able to have access to throughout my experience? Feel free to drop a comment below. If you want more details, I don't know if I'll do it on YouTube, but if you have questions or anything like that, feel free to email me hello@jaleesahardy.com. I do have an event coming up on tomorrow by God's Design. I posted about it earlier. So go to my community or my post or whatever the case may be here on YouTube, and the details are there, and the link to sign up is there. But we'll be talking about direction, clarity, and vision for 2025 at that event. And I'll be sharing more of the things that God has given me to share with you all in order for you to live the life that you desire and that you deserve of peace, pleasure, and purpose. So definitely, if you have not signed up, go to the link or go to jaleesahardy.com/events, and you'll see the event there for tomorrow. But like I said, if you have any other questions, you want to know more, drop it in the comments or send me an email. Let me check and see if I'm complete. Yes, I'm complete. But just remember, I love you. I see you, and I'm so proud of you. You get to choose your heart. You get to choose for life to be fun and easy as well. But if you find yourself in between a rock and a hard place, choose the one that is going to be most beneficial for you and your future. If you have a hard time or challenging time with decision making, muscle testing, it's a good support when it comes to this decision making. But that's all I have. Until next time, like I said, next story time might be one of my pregnancy and traumatic childbirth experiences. Um, yeah, that might be the next thing. But remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, all those things to continue to get the word out about my channel so that we can get the number of subscribers that we need in order to be monetized. We need 500 subscribers, 3 million views on a short, I think 3,000 watch hours, and it's something else that I can't remember right now, but it's in the span of 90 days. Oh, and 3 videos, but I do videos all the time. So that's not a problem. But please support the the movement. Please support the monetization of our page. It's free to support. I say that all the time. So if you're watching, please subscribe, please like, please share, turn your post notifications on because Storytime Saturday is probably always going to be a different time. Freedom Fridays, I try to get as close to 8, but sometimes my events on Fridays in my groups or other events, I usually do them on Fridays. Um, but if they run over, I might be a few minutes late. But that's all. I'm gonna stop rambling. Thank y'all so much for watching. I love you. I see you. I'm so proud of you. Peace.